Well, welcome back. Now, it appears this is the season of endorsements. With just 2 weeks or a few weeks, I should say, to the presidential election, the atmosphere has been bombarded with news of political endorsements from individuals who have some level of influence in the country. Just recently, former President Olusegun Obasanjo threw his weight behind the Labour Party's presidential candidate, Peter Obi. In a letter he wrote, Obasanjo said Obi had an edge over other presidential candidates in terms of knowledge, discipline, vitality, and character. Now, expectedly, the APC, PDP, and of course NNPP have criticized the endorsements, describing Obasanjo, for instance, as a paperweight politician who cannot guarantee votes in his constituency. As if to counter their beliefs, Ijaw national leader and the convener of PANDEF, that's Edwin Clark now, endorsed Peter Obi, governor of Benue State, of course, and one of the aggrieved PDP G5 governors, Samuel Otom, followed suit, endorsing Obi for president. Now, the question is, are these endorsements truly a determinant as to the outcome of the elections? In fact, could these endorsements sway the election in favor of any of the candidates? Just how important are the endorsements? Joining me now to discuss this and more, I have public affairs analyst Theo Akatuba, who joins us from Lagos. And then we have Dr. Farouk Bibi Farouk, who is a political economist. He joins us from Abuja. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Let me start with you, Dr. Bibi Farouk. How important is this endorsement?
Well, one cannot measure the importance easily because like blueprints of other aspects of electioneering, it is coming into our electoral system for the first time. And in the past, we never seem to have such a personality endorsement.
I think maybe we're learning this from America, right?
Yeah, I think so. But in the United States, you find that, yes, principal persons of good character and respect do make endorsements. Colin Powell, for example, could make endorsements and could make an impact. But normally endorsements come from either media who have editorial opinions that people accept and follow, Fox News, NBC, or so on, maybe ideological persuasions. Now, the endorsements we are seeing so far are not going around those American systems. We are not seeing Obasanjo actually endorsing because Obasanjo has a personality that can create votes. He cannot create votes probably in his own household. So about being influential enough to create votes, Obasanjo has rather repudiated those in power much more than got the support or gave support to those in power. So if it even happens that it is happening today, we expect some maybe repudiation. Some people argue that Obasanjo endorses with the intent of being able to control and manipulate the intended candidate. And if he doesn't get his way, he reacts back. But the endorsement of somebody like Edwin Clark is another phenomenon altogether because he represents a sectional group. He represents a group that does not even accept the constitution, nor accept the system of Nigeria, probably unless it is being ruled by somebody they prefer. So when we see endorsement in Nigeria, the first thing we begin to now see is it about ethnic identity, regional identity, or is it about religion? The three main endorsers now that we have are both from the same faith with the candidate, one of whom is the only one among four that principal ones that are all the three others are Muslims. So it's really not yet a time to really value and measure endorsement unless we begin to see the results. If these endorsements by next month make an impact and are significant, or if these people do really have followers, which I doubt that they have followers that can impact the elections. So I don't see so much hullabaloo about the endorsements, actually.
Let me come to you, Mr. Katuba. Look, even if these endorsements do not, win the election, I mean, if they do not sway voters, to vote in a particular direction, at least for the optics, is it not something good for the candidates who's getting these endorsements, at least for the optics?
First of all, I like to talk about endorsements and their possible effect. Endorsements are a public statement of an individual or a group of persons in support of a political candidate in an election. Now, you have to look at who is doing the endorsement. You have to also look at the quality of the voters in a particular society.
True.
In our climb, for example, our voters are not yet very enlightened, and they believe in opinion leaders. A lot of the voters follow opinion leaders. So in this climb, endorsement could have a positive effect for the candidates who endorsed. It can also have a negative effect depending on who is endorsing. So in the case of that we have now, where you have an Obasanjo and Edwin Clark and others, the other candidates who have their own share of endorsement, but these other endorsements that have come recently are making news because it is expected that Obasanjo should have endorsed Atiku, because that was the person he endorsed in the last election. If Atiku were not in the contest, then we would have been free enough to endorse. But endorsing Atiku in the last election and rejecting Atiku to endorse Obi in this election makes the endorsement somehow of a liability.
No,
because it shows like
now, something I need to correct. I'm not very sure that Obasanjo endorsed Atiku in the last election. Did he? At least not publicly, because we know,
No,
for instance, that Obasanjo had, you know, he's on record. You must have read his book.
No, he did.
My Watch. He never wants Atiku to. He's never been a fan of Atiku at all.
Let me explain it. He did publicly by an open activity of forgiveness of Atiku, where you have Oyedepo and Gumi and all of them with Reverend Father Kuka in a television broadcast.
Yes, I know
where
that.
He said he has forgiven him and that he supports his quest for the presidency. What more do you want from an endorsement? That was a very major endorsement for Atiku in 2019. So what I'm saying is that there is a positive and a negative. It has an influence. For example, now, Obasanjo's current endorsement of Peter Obi might have no weight in Southwest because the political forces and dynamics are not in favor of Obasanjo in the Southwest. But it might have effect in the North because Obasanjo is a person that the North seems to have seen as a friend, someone who has good judgment. It can have an effect in some areas, but not in many areas. The same way with Edwin Clark, who you know that he is in contest in Bayelsa State and in the Ijaw land. His endorsement might inure to a few votes, but not so much. Now, that is talking about the individuals. But what I want to say, endorsement has an effect. It can give you votes or can take votes from you.
Let me go to you, Dr. Farouk. You just heard what he said about the effect that the Obasanjo endorsement could have, especially in the north, some areas of the north of the country. I'd want you to speak to that.
I don't think Obasanjo will get 10 votes from the north on his own. Obasanjo's support from the north came from the boys he had in the military who developed significant influence in northern activities. Babangida, Anugu T.Y., Nkrumah, and Co. Those people maintain a cult of followership because of certain things they did and the generosity they did during the times they had opportunities. And they maintain those elements of generosity. So I can tell you that as of today, I would not imagine an emir or first-class ruler in the north that is not somehow friendly to these people. So if these people endorsed somebody, you would see that you'd see some value in it. But they brought Obasanjo and endorsed him. He did not generate any support on his own. And until he left, he did not generate that support for himself. The fact that if he is part of that group, and that group accepts his endorsement, it would make a lot of a difference. But if he's endorsing Tolo, I doubt if he'll have any support from the North.
And look, for you, were you surprised? Were you surprised when, for instance, Obasanjo said he was endorsing Obi? Because somehow the handwriting had been on the wall for a long time. I mean, the same thing as Chief Edwin Clark with Pandef.
You see, I think what Obasanjo is trying to do is to play into the politics of the new generation of Nigerians. And unfortunately, he cannot do that through his own generation. That is from the children he has brought up or the people close to him that are younger generations. They will actually repudiate him. So he is more or less playing a politics of getting the support that Peter Obi is able to garner because of the circumstances of today where the youth are agitating much more than they were before, than him giving support to Peter Obi. I think Obasanjo is seeking endorsement from a generation of Nigerians that have taken a position, and he believes that they can make a lot of impact in the history of this country with that position. That is the younger generation. I was the national youth leader of PDP when he was president. He didn't do much for the youth in particular. He didn't go too much against us, but his politics was never a politics of the development of the next generation. So I think he wants to end his life endorsing a next generation and putting in a record. Obasanjo is a very meticulous person, both on earth, and he would want, even after his life, to be recognized to have done something. Whenever he sees that he has a liability somewhere or a deficiency somewhere, he does try to cover it, and he does it with a lot of hard work and effort. And it covers to a large extent. He was my boss, but I think this endorsement would only give him the necessary support and flavor he seeks for from the generation of people below Peter Obi that are really getting organized and agitated about seeing some specific changes. But it is not an ideological or this thing here. He has not analyzed Peter Obi to the extent of arriving at an ideological position that can convince younger people that Peter Obi would really be a better president. Because to a lot of us, Peter Obi is a bourgeois importer of commodities and exporter of labor. So he has never really given us what he's promising, that is production instead of consumption. He's a maverick of consumption, and he has not explained that up to now. And nobody has come around ideologically to put Peter Obi on an ideological platform that can convince the generation that are agitating for him. The labor people that are with him are now in a contradiction of whether oil subsidy should stay or oil subsidy should go. So those contradictions will come up. And so I do not see the endorsement actually making any meaning from the characters that have come to endorse him.
Let me go over to Theo Akatuba. There's this other endorsement that people are really not talking about, but that some people will say is important. We saw the governor of Benue State, Samuel Otom, one of the G5 governors now, seemingly endorsing Obi, but, you know, I would say seemingly because that's not a complete endorsement. It's like half of the way endorsement. But just how important, or how important, for instance, will the endorsements of the G5 governors be? What difference do you think, if they should, you know, join the fray now, what difference do you think their endorsements, for instance, will make for any of the candidates?
Well, the endorsement of the G5 will make a lot of impact on Peter Obi and work against Atiku in areas where Atiku hitherto performed well in 2019. When you see Otom's endorsement of Peter Obi should be expected. One, he will not endorse APC candidate. He should endorse a PDP candidate that have moved to Labour. And that is Peter Obi, having publicly said he cannot vote for a Fulani man and that he cannot vote for Atiku. So Otom is lost in the mist. In fact, even if the G5 choose to work for Tinubu, Otom is likely to defer and differ with them. So you see, he has come out ahead of time to make a public declaration that the G5 better work with Obi or he sticks with Obi, because there's no other way for him for any political relevance. So his case is a very difficult one, and he's already made himself clear. Oyo State Governor is also in the limbo. He's likely to work with Tinubu instead of going with Obi, because right in Oyo State, Obi is likely to make so much impact, and he doesn't want to have political irrelevance for his support. So you see the G5 people have already splitted already along the lines of the difficulties and challenges that are obvious to them.
But what difference do you think that their endorsements will make? Because the question is, you think they'll be able to sway the voters in their states to vote in a particular direction?
Yes, they have a level of influence, but not totally, especially now that votes are not bought, votes are not directed, votes are not created. We have a voter population that is predominantly now a bit independent, and you've got to do a much more work of convincing. So you have influence quite all right, but it's not going to go as far as it used to be. So I see their endorsement helping those within the areas of their influence following in the direction of their leader, because we still have a political voter class that is predominantly opinion leader followers.
Okay. Dr. Farouk, you look at the way it is now. It's like this G5 governors, for want of a better word now, displaying their endorsements, hawking their endorsements, if you like, as a very, very important commodity. And even though the candidates are not openly sorting or seeking these endorsements now, the truth is that they would want the endorsements. The way it is, just from what Mr. Katuba has said, it's not likely that all of them would be endorsing one candidate, so there might be a split. But do you think they'll make any difference at all in the outcome of the election?
If you say any difference, you're putting it right to the thread. They would make a difference. Whether the difference would make a difference is another issue altogether. But certainly, as a group of governors, 5 of them, certainly they have some leverage in the political processes of the country. Have they lost some of the turns they needed to have made? Yes, I think so. When the first set of governors that left PDP in 2014 or 13 did so, they immediately merged into a party, became principal promoters of that party, put in their candidates into that party. So we're able to move with that party together. Now, this is a group of governors that has their own supporters, different from any political party. At this stage, their endorsement might not carry the total support of the people who are contesting elections under the PDP along with them. So you would see that they might not be able to, they have not carried their people as at now. They are still in a boat. They have not taken the boat across the Mediterranean, whatever it is, but they have not crossed. So they might find the elections happening at the time when their boat has not really come to shore. Because they say that by this month, they will decide, Wike will at least decide who to tell his people to support. And like my colleague said, it is a bit more difficult for people like Makinde to go along with wherever Wike decides to go, though he seems to be the principal interest of that group, but he's not contesting. Many of them are contesting positions in the PDP. And I've taken note of the fact that they have created the integrity group, which gives them an ability to still remain in the PDP, contest elections, and decamp after the elections, because the Constitution allows you to have a faction. If there is a faction, you can still remain in your party and defect, choose another party whenever you choose to. So they have done this cleverly, and they intend to keep their people within the PDP, contest elections within the PDP, and then take a decision after the results of the elections are out. But then, if the results of the elections are what they are waiting for, but the contestants are waiting for them now, so it's very difficult and dicey for them. But that as governors, even if they're just for the fact of they can help you with getting lawyers to fight your battles, because the elections as we have today is moving away from the processes of voting into the processes of litigation. So when you see a principal person who is endorsing you, you have to also look at his capacity to support your lawyers, his capacity to support security agents when they are with you or not you, how influential is that person with INEC, and so on. Of course, we are all dependent on the Electoral Act. We are hopeful that it will be what it is, but we have never tried it. And the gadgets that are there, we have never tried them, so we don't know what influence will come. So an endorser really needs to be much more than just a person writing a letter, as far as
Okay, I understand you. Just before I go, I want to ask both of you one question, and I want you to be very brief with your answers because we're actually out of time. Let me start with you, Akatuba. Why do you think it is difficult for the PDP to expel this G5 governors? Because obviously what they are doing is clearly anti-party.
First of all, it is difficult for the PDP because the PDP is hoping against hope that they will change their mind and there will be a reconciliation. On the other hand, it's a very critical moment of election, and these are governors that hold sway in very critical and important states, very strategic locations. That is the reason why they have not expelled them. But let me tell you, PDP's failure to expel these 5 governors is a demonstration to the electorate and to the citizens that this party, if given the chance to form a governor, certain citizens in this country will be above the law. PDP has a big liability, and they need to do something fast and take a decision to save their party from looking weak, because after this election, there shall be more election, and it's expected that the party should exist and the party should be supreme. I find PDP showcasing weakness where they should show strength. If they expel the 5 of them, there could be underground moves to reconcile. The party will be shown as a strong party, able to form government to deal with a country where there are big man or big men offenders or people who seem or act as if they are above the law and nothing seems to happen to them. So if PDP does not do something about this, very analytical minds will stay away from that party.
Oh, okay. Let me get your own thoughts, Dr. Bibi Farouk.
I think politically the PDP has done the right thing by not ejecting them out. Weeks and months to elections, you are very careful with how you handle your disciplinary issues. No matter how many you lose, you would want to keep as many as possible until after the elections. And I think PDP feels if it had ejected these people, by now they would have metamorphosed into a big force and supported another party, both materially, both intellectually, both in other manners, publicity and so on. Now that they are hanging on the limbo, it is much easier for PDP to handle them on limbo than to lose them completely. And I think the Constitution or the Electoral Act has based on precedences that were wrong, because in the past, the party could at any point in time write INEC and remove a candidate, replacement issues. Since the replacement issue is not possible now, the only thing they can do is to try and keep them together with their supporters. Some of their supporters that must now contest under the PDP might have change of minds. Don't be surprised that Wike will create a governor that first 1 month or 2 months will go back home to PDP and tell him, hey, this adventure you're up to, I'm not going along with you. But for now, they have to continue going.
All right.
And it could be the last day of election, some of their supporters who are contesting positions might decide to work for the PDP.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Theo Akatuba, a public affairs analyst, and Dr. Farouk Bibi Farouk, a political economist. Thank you so very much for your time and for your insights.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't go away.
Opinions are free. Facts are sacred. But truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI360, dissecting the issues.